Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Good morning. Hello, friends. Good morning to you. Got a little mug up this morning. Good morning, friends. How are you? Hope you're having a great day. Hello, hello. Good morning to you on this beautiful day. The sun is shining. It is glorious outside. It's even above 30 degrees. It's just making 40 degrees. It is a beautiful day. Gonna try and get out and maybe get a walk in if we can. Hey, good morning, Karen. Hope you're doing great this morning. Hello, everybody. All right. Good morning, friends. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Yvette. Good morning to you. All right, let's get going this morning, friends. It is the 13th day of January. We are halfway through January. This is the 13th day of the month is continuing. And welcome. I hope you are having a grand and a good day today. Today I want us to think a little bit just about what Paul calls the great cloud of witnesses. And we can think about this often with the people in our life, that this great cloud of witnesses are those people for whom the wider church are informing our walk in our way. I had a great conversation recently or just an little email exchange with the great Reverend Chris Serber down in Naples, and he is writing an article for the Congregationalist about making this trip. Really, it's a pilgrimage. What he was doing is making this trip to the Savoy Church, where the at one point the Congregationalists came up with a declaration, the Savoy Declaration, that it's called. Really, they weren't really creative in their naming conventions, but they met at the Savoy Church and they came up with this declaration about how it was to be in the congregational way. And this is one of the first kind of ideas about how we might be together as pilgrims on the way to God. And so, we have all of them to think about, but we also have our own personal saints to think about, like the people that are the cloud of witnesses that have been a part of our life, the people that have informed us, the people who have loved us, that have cared for us. We also have, but there's also even the wider sense of that, just the great movement of the Christian world and the Christian tradition that Tom Holland in his book uh, Dominion. But Tom Holland, by the way, is really an atheist, isn't really trying to make a theological point, but he talks about the power and the impact of the Christian tradition on the world, and that the reason we have the world that we have, that he has this, makes this incredible case. The reason we have the world that we have, the reason that we have the things that we have, the reason that we have hospitals and schools and all of these things, it's largely because Jesus came into the world to be as we are and began to influence people in the way of the gospel, and the way that love called people to be, and the way that called the great cloud of witnesses to form. that those who have seen the work of Jesus in the world and in their life and have been changed and transformed because of it. And it's, again, this is not all, like, don't hear what I'm not saying, like, oh, you got to be perfect, or you got to, you're not living up to potential, or blah, blah, blah. None of that. This is just, there's people who had an experience of the true, the good, and the beautiful, and it transformed them in what they found in Christ Jesus, and in a different way of being. So I say all of that to kind of come to where we land today, which is, I want to talk about Theodora. So Theodora is the Empress of Justinian, Emperor Justinian. Okay, who are these people? So we're going all the way back. We're going quite literally almost 1,500 years back, 1,493, I think. So the year 532, the Empress Theodora is obviously is married to Emperor Justinian. Now Theodora is really the spine in the relationship. Justinian is not a powerful guy, but Theodora is not only is she considered very beautiful, but she was wise and smart and tough. She began. She was the daughter of a bear trainer. Like, how about that? How about those for some bona fides? And she would go on to have a couple of salacious relationships along the way, and finally would end up marrying the Emperor Justinian. She was a radical in her day, that within the Byzantine Empire of her day. So this is Constantinople. This is what is now Turkey. This is before the Muslims came on the scene. Theodora was shut down the brothels in every major city in the empire. She brought up rape laws, and actually made women's body security a thing that had never really been, hadn't necessarily been a thing at that point. She helped actually young girls get out of sex trafficking. That was a thing even then. Like she actually had divorce rights for women in terms of being able to. So she began all that work before she even got to the day that we're talking about, which is today, January 13th, 532, where everything goes crazy in Constantinople. That there were these 7 guys who were convicted of crimes, who were in the hippodrome, so which is in the racing facility, and so they were about to be hung as a result of their crimes, and all of a sudden the stage, the platform on which they were about to be hung, collapsed, and the guys who were about to be, some of them were rearrested, but 2 of them ran into a church and huddled around the altar, and the people in the city believed that was a sign from God. Now Justinian, however, said justice needs to be justice, and that he sent his soldiers in to arrest those 2 guys. Well, the people ended up revolting, and that quite literally Justinian and his little retinue and his wife were trapped in the palace, and they were and all of his counselors said, you need to flee, like you need to get out of here, you need to escape, you need to run, because these people, the revolt in the city aims to kill you. Theodora, however, had other plans. Theodora looked at her terrified husband, looked at the terrified counselors, and said, if running away was the only means of safety, I still wouldn't do it. I would disdain to fly, because I will not be seen for a day without my crown and without my purple. I believe in the maxim of antiquity that kingship is a glorious shroud. Meaning this, that, and you have to kind of understand this a little bit. It's not just that she was kind of all that uppity. It's saying God has given you a job. Like this was the understanding of kingship back then. This is a little different. Like we don't quite see it through the same lens. So I want to unpack that for just a second. God has given you a job. God has given you a place. God has given you a divine responsibility, and which in good kings, this was the job to be that we have all the tropes out there of the good king and the bad king, and we know the difference, right? That it really was the good king's job to bear the burden for the people of keeping justice, of keeping the good, the true, and the beautiful, the good, the true, and the beautiful, of restraining, that one of the great kings, the name for the great king was he that restraineth, the one that restrains the hells, the one that restrains evil. Like this was are you kind of picking up what I'm laying down? And so when she says that I will not be seen for a day without my crown and without my purple, I believe that kingship is a glorious shroud. The shroud was the mantle of responsibility. That it is a glorious responsibility given to us from God to care for this city. And if we lay down our responsibility, nothing good will come. And she inspired Justinian to stay and to fight. He goes out, and their reports vary, but there may be 30,000 rioters in Constantinople that end up being killed. That much of this criminal class that we're trying to protect these two guys, much gets cleaned out. But it's a bad day in Constantinople. But what will happen is Justinian will find his voice as a result of Theodora's work. And the two of them will reign for another 33 years. And actually, some of the most beautiful pieces of architecture and churches that we have in the world, including what is called the Hagia Sophia, which is, I think, we can fight about it, but I think the most beautiful church in the world, even though it's a mosque right now, it was built as a church for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before it became to be, before Islam was invaded and took it over. It is one of the most beautiful pieces of architecture on the planet. That they went on to build 25 more churches on top of that. They established some of the greatest and architectural wonders in the world, and they continued all of that incredible work for human rights and for women's rights that would go on for another 3 decades. All because Theodora encouraged her husband in that hour to stand for that which was true and good and beautiful in the city, and to take up the responsibility that God had given him in the office that God had given him in being emperor. Now, I started this with this notion of the great cloud of witnesses. And I want you to think about this in the sense of your own Theodora. Like, what is this, like that? Because when we talk about the cloud of witnesses, we talk about them, at least I talk about them in the same way that kind of the Orthodox talk about them. If you ever walked into an Orthodox church, Theodora is an Orthodox, what you will see painted around the sides of the church are all of the saints. You will see quite literally lots and lots of people painted around the edges of the sanctuary, because their belief is that when they come to worship, there's everybody who had died before them, everybody who had been martyred before them, everybody who'd been part of the journey, everybody that loved them, all of them are coming to worship with us. Now, my contention is that doesn't happen on a Sunday morning when they stand there and chant songs with funny hats on. That is actually our lived reality every second of every day. That the great cloud of witnesses, that Theodora is right here, right now with us, and that the courage of a Theodora, the courage of right living, the courage of beauty, the true, the good, and the beautiful, all of those who've suffered illness and weakness and temptation and difficulty and brokenness and have overcome them. Those strengths are not gone. They're not absent. They are right here for us to call on upon within their stories, and to call on to be a part of our lives. That they're right there with us. All of the great cloud of witnesses. So friends, I hope today maybe you'll channel a little Theodora. Maybe you'll think about the divine task that God has given you to do right now, and you'll take up your shroud, you'll take up your mantle, you'll take up the thing that maybe you need to do but you don't want to. Maybe you have to do but you're afraid. Maybe that God has for you in it great blessings of great beauty that you're going to build into this world right on the other side of this one messy day. And that in this you might find peace and joy and justice and love, for not just for yourself, but for all manner of people that you encounter. So I hope, friends, that this eventful day and the 13th of January, 532, this crazy story that I dug out of the archives of the world might remind you of the great cloud of witnesses that journey with you, that are a part of your life, that whisper to you right now, that gather close when you seek to do that which is hard and lift up that which is true and good and beautiful in your life. So friends, may the glory of God shine in you and through you and with you, and that you may raise up your own Hagia Sophia in the living of your days. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. We will not pick it up tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be lifting up in memorial our friend Richard Cookson, who passed into the next life, who is now a part of the great cloud of witnesses. And so we will pick it up on Thursday with another 11:11.